how the Ambazonian Governing Council, how we operate. I hope most Ambazonians are going to see today that we don't just do things ordinarily. I think this is one of the greatest democracy existing in Africa today. And we're not only fighting for the freedom of Ambazonia, we're fighting to change the entire equation in Africa. And as we go through this process, we're requesting for prayers all over around the world. And we also need support from the international communities to keep making us better as we move forward. That said, we are opening up our democracy today. We're opening up to the world what we practice behind the scene before we come to act. So we hope you sit back, buckle your belts, and watch how our presidential debate exercise is going to play out today. We have a phenomenal team that is going to be working from the technical department behind the scene and those who will be coordinating the debate. And again, I applaud the courage of the board leaders. And that said, today again will never be the same to all of us. May the great Creator, God, help us, empower our people so that they will live to self-actualize themselves. I am at this juncture pleased to introduce the person who will be paddling this debate tonight. This is one of the most powerful female lady in Ambazonia, and we love it because in Ambazonian Governing Council, we do not only do things, but we do it with discretion, with the people who have the ability, the competence to do it. Person who is doing it today is one of the most beautiful Ambazonia you can ever think of. And she will be doing her ultimate best to give us all what we need, all what we require. So that said, I want to introduce the beautiful and privileged to do that. It's none other than this one powerful female lady in the name of Dr. Abufree. Madam Chair, you have the floor.
All right.
And I give you all the best, and I see you at the top. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Comrade Divine, for that phenomenal introduction. I think you said it all when it comes to democracy. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Greetings, fellow comrades of the Ambazonia War of Independence. I am Dr. Frida Mambo. My friends call me Abufree, as you heard Comrade Divine called. And I am honored to be moderating the first ever Ambazonia debate between Dr. Ayaba Lucas and Comrade Hurace Ngula. Dr. Ayaba Lucas is the incumbent president of the AGOVC. And we all sitting here and those of you watching know everything about him. So for time's sake, I will skip his introduction if you all don't mind. On the other hand, we have Comrade Hurace Ngula. For those of you who don't know Comrade Ngula, he is the current vice chairman of the AGOVC UK and the deputy defense chief of the Atlantic state. Comrade Ngula is a bona fide member of the AGOVC and understands the structure and functioning of the AGOVC. So we are grateful that he's on board doing this. So I want to emphasize that this is the first of its kind, and it sets a democratic precedence for a future Ambazonia and for Africa at large. So we are about to make history. Now, I'm calling on every one of you here to please remain silent and keep your audio muted. Therefore, if you're not speaking, please mute yourself to avoid any distractions from your end. Today's debate will primarily be about leadership, defending homeland, diplomacy, and education. It has been divided into segments. So Direct exchange between the candidates and the moderator follow-up are permitted, and each candidate has 3 minutes to answer a lead question in order to determine to answer a lead question in an order determined by the moderator, which is myself. The questions were formulated by the presidential debate group. The final questions were chosen by me, and I have not shared these questions with anyone. My timekeeper for today, I'm honored, is the HSS, Comrade Cecilia Amabo. So thank you, Comrade, for doing this and sitting in as my timekeeper. So at this time, I want us to unmute everybody, communication, if you can unmute everybody, so that we can welcome our candidate with a hand of applause. Right. And he said, the greatest leader is not necessarily the one who does the greatest things. He is the one that gets the people to do the greatest things. Now, with that in mind, the first lead question. Gentlemen, we are going to start with leadership. The Ambazonian War of Independence has lingered for years, 4 years and above. Several families have lost loved ones, hundreds displaced, hundreds of thousands, not just hundreds, hundreds of thousands displaced both internally and externally. Hundreds of villages have been razed to the ground, and children have sacrificed their education. Now, because of all these, many Ambazonians have derailed from the fight because they don't see a clear path to total freedom. If you are elected as the president of the Ambazonia Governing Council, what is your roadmap to liberate Ambazonia within the shortest time possible? Comrade Ngula, you have 3 minutes to start with this one.
Thank you, moderator, and once again, good evening, good afternoon to fellow Ambazonia across the world. My sincere heart feelings to those on the ground facing the enemy on a daily basis and our refugees, our IDPs. You all are all in our thoughts. Before getting into your question, please permit me to just give a short rundown of who I am. I'm Hurace Ngula Masalo. I'm an Oroko Chai, and I was born in Kumba, coming from the great state of Meme and Dian. I live in Johannesburg and then moved to the UK. I've been in the AGOVC ever since I could remember, and I've worked and served with other leaders in the movement and learned to grow to become who I am today. Educational-wise, I hold a double bachelor's in biochemistry and biotechnology and a master's degree in biotechnology. Currently, I'm practicing as a biomedical scientist here in the UK. With that being said, coming to your question in terms of leadership, the problem that we face today in our revolution is because from the onset when the revolution kickstarted, it has always been the issue of pride, status in life, and society. The foundation of this can stem back from the days of the governing council, let me put it, Skakuf, where some few individuals think or arrogated themselves that privilege to lead the revolution without considering the grassroots movement. So it became too political, and hence the division that we see today. What I've learned throughout the past 4 years, from 2016 till now, I've discovered that stepping forward as the leader of the AGOVC, one of the first tasks that I'm looking at is to bring back that unity among Ambazonia across the board from different walks of life, political ideology, so that we can all work together to build the kind of nation that we are looking forward to. Most especially, it's not really about the roadmap because you cannot predict how soon a revolution will end because it's a dynamic thing, it keeps evolving each day. But I believe the essential part is for us to come together as one, to provide that leadership where you will not be discredited or ignored because you don't fall within a particular category of people or within a particular class in the society. We want each
Sorry,
and every...
Mr. Hurace, your time is up. Thank you very much.
Dr. Ayaba, over to you.
I think he should round up in a few seconds. Yeah.
Thank you very much for that. I believe with this, if we can all come together, provide that kind of leadership where everybody is being consulted, I think we can reshape our struggle and provide a clear path for leadership, which will take us in this year, 2021, and hopefully by coming of the year, we all will be hoping to go back home. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you so much, Comrade Hurace. Dr. Ayaba Lucas, over to you.
Thanks a lot, Chairman of Electoral Commission. Thanks to the moderator, timekeeper, and the others. Thanks to the opposing candidate, and thank you for your service and for what you have done for our organization and our people. I also want to thank the Ambazonian Governing Council for, who gave me the mandate in the past 4 years to be able to lead them. And I'm proud that within the organization, we have people with stamina and foresight who can step up the plate to be able to challenge, the pathway forward. Now, when I was elected as president of the Ambazonian Governing Council, I made a solemn promise to the organization that my primary responsibility will be to move the struggle from the interface of contemplation, stagnation, and the persistent argument of force of argument against the argument of the occupier to a place where we are in actual resistance. Because for all through my participation in the Ambazonian struggle, we had been engaged in more rhetorical and appeasement approach to our own freedom without taking into consideration the method of the opponent. And I can say that in the past 4 years, we have moved, the struggle from the supposed force of argument, our ideals confronting the method of the occupier, begging for the international system, to a place where our method is matching against the method of the occupier, and our ideals are also matching against the ideals of the occupier. We are no longer beggarly. The international system now recognizes us as a stakeholder. If I am given the opportunity on the 9th of February for my last 4 years as president, my primary responsibility would be to stabilize the Ambazonian struggle and put it on an irreversible pedestal. And I'm glad, Comrade Hurace talked about the issue of leadership, of bringing our people together. It will also be one of the focal points that I will take on. Currently, we have been working seriously to make sure our fighters on ground zero come together. And it's a miracle, thanks to Grandpa of Bali, who set the tone, and it's going quite well. After the 9th of February, I look forward to uniting our bloggers, our political leadership, those with whom we can work well to move forward. The roadmap will be focused on defense to make sure we strengthen the ability of our fighters to defend themselves, defend and stabilize areas we already have in control, protect our population. In diplomacy, it will be a liberation.
Dr. Ayaba, your time is up.
My diplomatic approach will be forthright to be able to make the international community respect us as an equal party to La République du Cameroon and continuously mobilize our people internationally.
Right, thank you, Dr. Ayaba. Comrade Ngula, just a follow up on this question. Now, you've listened to Dr. Ayaba, talk about the strategies that he's going to put in place, and he has been the president of the AGOVC for the past couple of years. Do you think that so far up to this point, him and his team have been doing a formidable job to liberate Ambazonia within the shortest time possible?
Thank you, moderator. To that extent, I'm saying yes, credit to the leadership of the AGOVC. It's not like I am an opposition to the movement. I'm a member of the movement and ascribe to the strategy that was put in place by the movement. So far, so good. We are on the right track, but stepping up in the leadership position is to bring, because I see myself as that kind of a person who coming from two states, great states in Ambazonia, and I can really work hard in bringing our people together, which is very essential at this stage. Also, the roadmap that has been set in place is not like we are going to change it. It is the roadmap and the vision of the AGOVC, so we'll continue to work on that to strengthen it. So far, so good. I believe the current leadership is on track, but we just need to step up or change some of the strategy that we've put in place. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Now, moving on to question number 2, and this is still on leadership. The Ambazonian Governing Council is a leading movement towards liberating the people of Ambazonia, thus making it the vanguard of our war of independence. A movement like the AGOVC therefore needs a leader with stamina, intellectual capability, full understanding of warfare as the commander-in-chief, and full understanding of the enemy of Ambazonia. If you are elected the president of the AGOVC, how will you handle the pressure that comes with leading a formidable organization like the AGOVC? Dr. Ayaba Lucas, you have 3 minutes.
I think if you look at me carefully, I have added about 10 years of age. The charter of the organization does not give the possibility for the organization, which is unprecedented in liberation struggle, for the president to be compensated in any way, form, or shape. So you basically lead the AGOVC, based on your own means. Now, I can say I understand the enemy, and I have the ability to cope with the pressure because my instinct of leadership is inborn. It's something hardwired in me. And I think for the past 32 years that I've been engaged, constantly fighting Yaoundé, there has never been a time where I have been subdued, by the intensity of the enemy's approach. So with respect to my ability to cope with the international system, I understand the international system genuinely. And the way I have led the Ambazonian Governing Council has been to avoid the mistakes of other liberation movements that were more focused on liberation, and in that way undermining the means of the liberation and jeopardizing post-independence stability. That is why I've been very cautious in my words and in my actions. In terms of understanding the enemy that we face, fighting BIA for 32 years has basically given me the opportunity to study them well. And more importantly, the Ambazonian people, if you notice in the past 4 years, I didn't take a radical position with respect to the position of other leaders. I have been attacked and slaughtered. And sometimes I believe sincerely that the Ambazonian people were not up to speed with the reality of what we were facing. And I tried as much as possible to convince the AGOVC to develop policies that gradually bring the Ambazonian people up to where the leadership was. And it has worked well. Now the Ambazonian people understand the different stakeholders, the different actors within the struggle. I am basically equipped, to face the pressure. I have the stamina and the foresight to face both internal and external opposition. And I think that's one of the qualities that most other leaders within the AGOVC have demonstrated in the past 4 years.
All right. Thank you so much. Comrade Ngola, over to you.
Thank you very much. I think when you look at just being a member of an AGOVC, sorry, it's enormous pressure, because I remember back in the days where we're still building AGOVC in Johannesburg. Just to walk down the street in Johannesburg is really difficult, because identifying yourself as a member of a particular movement who is fighting for total liberation, the pressure is enormous. So I believe with pressure, there's no pressure that can break me down. I have that stamina to continue to fight for the liberation of women. Also, to understand our enemy, which is Cameroon, there's one distinction that I want to make here. Being the leader of the AGOVC and the leader of the revolution or the war of independence is really at times interlinked, but I'm looking myself to become the leader of the movement, not necessarily being the leader of the war of independence. I believe Dr. Ayaba is doing very well, and that role suits him to be the leader of the war of independence and at the same time the leader of the AGOVC. But what I'm trying to bring to create that clear cut between being the leader of the revolution and the leader of the movement, because being the leader of the movement, there are certain utterances that you need to be cautious on how to air them out, and certain compromises that you'll be able to make as a movement. But as a leader, the organization now will give directive or advice with the leader of the revolution. So I believe with the pressure and the understanding of the enemy, I'm well equipped with that. And even with the policies of the AGOVC as laid down in the charter, I believe I can cope with the pressure.
Okay. Dr. Ayaba, do you have anything to say about that, or?
Yes. I think Comrade Hurace is right. It's something I never give some deep reflection about the distinction between the president of the AGOVC, regulated by the charter, policies and practices, and leader of the war of liberation that you function unregulated. And it's something we should have a sincere debate if we can make that distinction. Because sometimes I think if I was simply, there is no way you can make a leader of a war of liberation. You can't make it because there is no procedure. And so it's an assumption. Though we say it, there is no mechanism through which you can say this person is, maybe by what they do, how they do it. But I think it's a debate we should have within our liberation struggle, if we should have someone as the leader of the war of liberation, and how we should get that person to that position, if the person will be accepted by others and the president of the Ambazonian Governing Council.
All right. Okay, moving on to question. Okay, I thought I heard Comrade. Moving on to question number 3. Being the vanguard of the Ambazonia War of Independence, Ambazonians expect the president of the AGOVC to present to them a liberation roadmap, a post-independence roadmap, and a reconstruction plan for the rebuilding of Ambazonia. Kindly tell us what your strategy for liberation and post-independence reconstruction will be. Comrade Ngola, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you again. I believe for the vision of the AGOVC, it remains unchanged, and even my vision for the liberation remains unchanged. We are fighting to become an independent and sovereign nation, and will continue to defend our homeland till we achieve that. Now, the strategies or the plan of action that we need to roll out, I cannot give a clear detail of it on national TV, but within the Defense Council, I can elaborate that because of security reasons, not giving out our strategy to the enemy to use that against us. For the stabilization or the post-independence stabilization, if we look at our geography, we discover that where Ambazonia is very critical, and we need that peace and harmony in that area. And first of all, we need to coordinate or bring all our people together to differentiate or to erase these tribal divisions that is existing and is still killing us right to today. If we can be able to eliminate that, I believe it will be a system where every Ambazonia will be rewarded or acknowledged based on their hard work and activities that they are doing on the ground. For reconstruction, we have economic assets that we are not even talking about, and even the human resource. We are so blessed abundantly. Look at us in the diaspora. You can name it from engineering to entrepreneurs all over. We have that human capability that in post-independent, if we all harness that expertise back to homeland, I believe the reconstruction process will not take as long as expected. So for now, there are lots of things that we need to tackle, but we can't talk about that without achieving first what we are fighting for. So I will still maintain that we continue with our defense strategy for the liberation, and after that, we'll roll out a plan working with other stakeholders for the reconstruction process. Thank you.
Dr. Ayaba, your thoughts on this, please.
I think in terms of the liberation roadmap, there are two principal approaches at this particular level. We began with the trial approach, which involved defense, targeted diplomacy, and international mobilization. International mobilization is more subdued now because it has become a consciousness within the Ambazonian psyche to be involved. My liberation plan is centered on consolidating the gains that we have made in the past 4 years of fighting by bringing in more materials, building a stabilization force that is going to make sure it eliminates the threat to our people in terms of kidnapping for ransom and in terms of the amount of enablers that La Republique has enabled within our community, and setting up transitional authorities between our forces and the civilian population that deals with issues of community education, health, community justice, and other aspects within community. The close working relationship between our forces and our community is very pivotal for the stabilization of Ambazonia, because stabilization is a projection of certainty that the ungovernable spaces can be taken care of, and it leads to international recognition. In terms of international diplomacy, as I reacted to the visit of the Vatican representative, Ambazonia is strong, has projected itself, and we are being called upon all the time to discuss about pertinent issues on negotiating La Republique's exit. I'm going to maintain a very strong personality with respect to demanding respect and treating Ambazonia as an equal party to the conflict. With respect to all of these things is geared towards the transitional period where all Ambazonians will come together to set up a transitional government that will, build a constitution, determine the structure of the state, organize free and fair election that will usher in the new leaders of Ambazonia. Thereafter, we are going to harness, like Comrade Hurace has said, our human resource, which is massive. We've got more than 20,000 Ambazonians in the diaspora. We are going to make sure that we use their presence here, not only to use remittances for purposes of improving the situation of people's home and indirect investment, but to make sure that they contribute to an entrepreneurial spirit that creates jobs. We are going to also focus on infrastructural development. When the United States emerged from the Second World War, the building of bridges, the building of roads, the construction of different things created opportunities for many people in terms of jobs. We're going to turn our military into a professional one. Focus on education. Education must be free. The foundation of education should be vocational to prepare the students for the kind of jobs.
Ayaba, your time is up, please. Thank you.
For the kind of jobs that, the 21st century is going to offer. So there's a lot that we are going to do, and we have already put that, and Comrade Hurace is right, it's going to be an AGOVC policy, which we have all worked on.
All right. Comrade Guler, so are you, I know that you said, we have a whole lot of economic access when it comes to, when it comes to rebuilding, a post-independence Ambazonia. Do you agree with what Dr. Ayaba, the plans that Dr. Ayaba just laid, or do you have other plans that you want to lay with regards to economic access, as you said?
Normally, I agree with the policy, the economic policy of the AGOVC, and I believe what he has elaborated is the policy of the Ambazonia Governing Council. So it's just a matter of little or one or two adjustments to it, but I ascribe to that same policy of the movement that I belong to.
All right, thank you so much. So last question on leadership. If you are elected the president of Ambazonia Governing Council, you will have a mandate for 4 years. What do you intend to do within the first 100 days in office to strengthen AGOVC Global, and most especially to strengthen the fighters on Ground Zero? Dr. Ayaba, you have 3 minutes.
In the past few weeks, I have been working on a defense program, on a foreign affairs program. And in terms, let me begin with the fighters. I have said my focus with respect to the fighters would be logistics, and Comrade Hurace, him and myself were yesterday in a 4-hour meeting in defense. At least provide at least 100,000 bullets to Amazonian fighters and provide them with what they will need to defend themselves. And secondly, we in the past 4 years, the sons and daughters, fathers, husbands and mothers have left their homes. They are in the bushes fighting. What we all talk about are our boys, sticks, bullets. Have we ever thought about the welfare of these men? Have we ever thought about, the psychological impact of the war on them? I've already been consulting with some specialists on how we can create opportunities to speak to them so that we can give them some sense of dignity and humanity. And I think it's important that if we have to move forward smoothly, we have to treat Ambazonian fighters with dignity, respect, and appreciation. A soldier was killed 2 weeks ago, and I spoke to the mother. I spoke to the senior brother. He left behind a wife and a 2-month-old baby. That child must be adopted by one of us out here so that the family can feel that, we care. We do not only care about the abstract of independence, but we care about individuals. My focus for the first 100 days will be on these things. And secondly, AGOVC is structured in such a way that we function almost like a subsistence. No, when the Kurds started, the Bel, the Kebab, when you find the Somalians, they have communities, community schools, community halls. I've been working with Comrade Hurace and the UK mission to make sure that we get the first Ambazonian community center in the UK. I've worked with them in Johannesburg and Cape Town to make sure that we open investment opportunities that employ Ambazonians who escape out, generate wealth, so that the first 100 days after independence, we already have prototype institutions that we can transplant into the homeland, not just jumping and talking about the abstract independence, freedom, without a single institution. The TV that we are today is an institution, and we may be able to use it for better purposes. So in my first year, I will alter, in collaboration with the executive and the entire membership, the nature of the Ambazonian Governing Council to work for the AGOVCs, to work for Ambazonians, and to look at soldiers with respect and for their dignity and their humanity.
All right, thank you so much. Comrade Hurace, over to you.
Thank you. If just to get your question right, you asked if being elected as the president of the AGOVC, what would be my plan of action for the first 100 days, right?
Correct.
I think first of all, if we look at how the AGOVC is structured, we have about 19 AGOVC missions globally. So in the first 100 days, the first thing that I'm ready to do is to link or bring all those missions together, because I discovered that they are working independently and there's that lack of coordination between one mission to another. So bringing all our missions together will be one of my primary targets. Secondly, like here in the UK, I've realized that UK is very resourceful and is a really strategic country when it concerns to our liberation struggle. So there are other stakeholders here in the UK and elsewhere around the world that in the first 100 days, it will be a consultation period where I will reach out to other movements to bring us together as one, under one big umbrella to pursue our freedom quest. Also, I will continue with the defense, and which is very, very critical, because no matter what we do out here, defending homeland will be our primary focus. And in the first 100 days, thanks to the leadership in place and the stabilization force that we are working on, I think we need to strengthen the capacity of them, not only the stabilization force, but across the entire territory, so that they continue to defend our people, protect our properties, and we need to equip them to the fullest. So I'll be looking at a budget, not about hundreds of thousands, but more than that, that if our men and women march the street, we all will be proud to call that a military. So I'll be looking at defense, strengthening of our defense capability, and reaching out to other stakeholders for us to come together and work as one. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Comrade Hurace. Dr. Ayaba, with a follow-up, Comrade Ngola mentioned that one of the things that he's going to do is to bring the missions, so the AGOVC missions, together, insinuating that maybe leadership has not been doing a good job with bringing the missions together. What do you say about this?
The way we have the chairman of the Council of Missions a year. I'm not sure how Comrade wants to bring the missions together. The missions are already together within the structure of the Council of Mission. That is how the missions work together. So except he's going to explain another plan on bringing them together. If he's talking about connecting their activities to be more impactful, I think that's something that I will agree on, because one of the deficiencies that I have had under my leadership is also hampered by the structure of the organization. The president is not as powerful as we think. My power is more with respect to the Ambazonian community than the AGOVC. The AGOVC has 4 different leaders. You have the chairman of the Council of Mission, you have the chairman of the National Council, and then you have the president who shares that portfolio with the vice president. So these are different independent centers of power. The president does not even have a right to dictate finance. I don't think I ever know, what is in finance. So the president is not as powerful. You need to alter the charter to give the president the kind of enormous power. Otherwise, if I want to alter the missions, I will fall into opposition with the chairman of the Council of Mission. So we will look at it, how we can make the missions connect together in terms of their activities. For example, doing what they are doing in the UK to building the community center, linking up with Johannesburg to make sure that we have so many Ambazonians that will do beauty work, putting a beauty salon, building a car factory in Cape Town. That is one possibility in terms of activities, but in terms of the structure, you will need to alter the charter.
Comrade Ngola, do you have anything to say?
Yeah, just to add to what Dr. Ayaba has said, if you look at the organizational structure, the Council of Mission is where all missions, they meet together. But that zeal or that anxiety to be there is really weakening. And I believe that constant communication or consultation with different missions to understand their own setting, because we are all in different countries. I remember when I was in Johannesburg, it's a day-to-day activity. We meet on a weekly basis physically, but moving over to UK and helping to build the AGOVC UK, I discovered that I'm in a total different environment where people work abnormal hours, let me put it that way, maybe in the night or in the day. To get people together becomes very difficult. But I tried to compare 2 scenarios and discover that there's a way that we can compromise or link missions together, not only their missions head being represented at the Council of Mission. Maybe we can increase the number to 2 or 3 persons so that in the absence of one person, the other person can still be active within the Council of Mission and relate back to his or her mission on certain activities and the way forward. So that is in light of what I was planning to do. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Okay, so let's move on to diplomacy. Now, being a leader in a frontline movement like the AGOVC, your knowledge of the Ambazonia War of Independence must be exemplary. So, how well can you articulate the Ambazonia case before the international community, or maybe, the Ambazonia people? For this question, each of you have 4 minutes. I will start with Dr. Ayaba Lucas.
Well, leaders and aspiring leaders, we are not historians, but we have a responsibility to try to have a mastery, not only of our history, from both a sociological, historical, and legal foundation, as to make a clear cut case at the level of the international system. And I think under my leadership, I have been able to articulate that mastery in a succinct manner with utmost clarity, to the extent that the international system has come to understand. And one of the things I've also learned doing quiet diplomacy is the international system is not, the actors sometimes are not as versed with different strategies on how to bring about an end to a conflict. And I have sat in meetings where I have been able to provide advice on how to move the issue of negotiation forward. And that has been thanks to do my homework to try to study different revolutions, how they ended, how they were conducted, and how the international parties were able to bring together the belligerents. So I think the experience I have gathered through my engagement and through scholarship has probably given me an opportunity. Also, being a public speaker, the more you speak, the more mastery you have on the issues. And our struggle is also a very competitive space, in such a way that you have to equip yourself sometimes not only for the international competitor, but for the domestic opposition. So it's a daunting challenge. And I think every one of us, is equipped for that role, but you need to have, the ability at instant to be able to answer a question. I also am frightened sometimes. When I entered Sky Studio, and I was like, oh my God, how am I going to cope in here? So those human frailties sometimes give us the strength. But I can say that in my past 4 years, I have been able, I don't know how, to articulate and demonstrate mastery of our history, the issues that we discuss, and exactly what the Ambazonians people aspire for. And I look forward to improving on some of the limitations that I have in terms of my communication and in terms of my articulation.
All right, thank you so much. Comrade Hurace, over to you.
Thank you, moderator. I think we all can agree that growing up studying our history, we came to realize that our history was really, really distorted. And some of the things that we do articulate today, to us, we might think they are correct or accurate, of which they are distorted history. So I'm still in that learning process of research. As I earlier said, I'm a science-based student, but with this, stepping up in leadership position, I'm also doing some courses in conflict resolution and international relations. So I believe it's a learning process, and being for the past 4 years within the AGOVC, it has given me that capacity to learn and grow in setting or to understand our history. And I believe now, to a certain extent, I can articulate the Ambazonia plight to the international community and to our people back at home. But one thing that really captivates my mind is the social and economic well-being of our people, how we grow up. All of us can see that distinction, that there's a gap between our people and what Cameroon is. So with that experience, I believe with the knowledge of history, I think I can articulate and communicate to our people directly. Thank you.
All right, thank you. You answered my follow-up question already by you saying that, being in the AGOVC, you've learned a lot. I was going to ask you to challenge the current leadership on this particular issue of narrating or articulating the war of independence to the international community. So I guess you just beat me on that. Anyways, moving on to the next question. The international community has been loudly silent about the ongoing genocide in Ambazonia. So what plans do you have to make the international community commit towards their responsibility to protect? Comrade Hurace, over to you.
Thank you. One thing that most of our people have failed, that I've witnessed, is just that we are in the liberation struggle, and this is war. But I've realized that most of our people are still concerned for the West or the international community to come to our rescue. No, I disagree with that. To me, what I intend to do is to inflict more pain to Cameroon. They will be the one to reach out to us, not the other way around. So the strategy will remain the same as what the AGOVC has laid down. Defending homeland, we need to provide our men and women with the necessary materials, heavy armory that will inflict more pain to the Cameroon government. The international community will be the one knocking our doors, not us crying for them to come to our rescue. So I believe we just need to continue with the defense strategy in place, then everything will fall in place. Thank you.
All right, Dr. Ayaba.
I think I agree with him. One of the at the beginning of our struggle, I mean, more than 30 years ago, everyone was focused on going to the UN. We were sitting there in Victoria, and the Funchas and the Munas that were setting up the delegation. Everyone always thought about, going to the UN and letting them come in to do the bidding for us. They thought about going to Auckland to meet the Commonwealth. Even when John Frundi won an election in 1992, he was relying on the international community. I was having a discussion before coming in here with one of our comrades on atrocities and the silence of the international system. How is it possible that 6 million Jews were murdered in Europe in the full glare of Europeans? How is it possible that in 100 days, 1 million Rwandans were killed, and it took a brave Kagame, to invade, to rescue its people? How is it possible that rape is a tool of war in the Democratic Republic of Congo? How is it possible that in the full glare of the 21st century, genocide is being committed against the Rohingyas in Myanmar? And, how is it possible that in less than 100 days, you have hundreds of thousands of Syrians were murdered and the international system did nothing? We will have to rely on ourselves. And I agree with Comrade Hurace. We need to put more arms to the ground. We need to conscientize our civilian population to know that they will have to join the fight. It's not a fight only between our forces and La République. It's a fight of the 8 million Ambazonian army against La République de Cameroon. If we do that, we'll achieve a sense of internal protection, and that strength will galvanize the international community, to activate relevant international instruments like the POC of Kofi Annan or the R2P post-Rwanda. So I think he's really on point that we must focus on arming Ambazonians to defend themselves, protect our villages. And him and myself and the others, we met for the past 9 hours for 2 days to really focus on this.
Right. You both are making this very, very easy for me, just agreeing with each other. I'll need you all to disagree at some point. Okay. So last question on diplomacy. if there is a sudden turnaround today in this war, and there is a need for negotiation with La République du Cameroon, as the leader of a frontline movement, what would be your strategy to guarantee a sovereign nation to the Ambazonian people when you get on that negotiation table? Dr. Ayaba Lucas.
I have argued repeatedly. The leader of the AGOVC will not be participating initially during any negotiation. The leader will be focused on the war against a country that has refused to talk for the past 60 years. We have set up, and it's an organizational policy, we have set up our negotiations team, and they have done their homework extremely very well. And I think the human resource that is available within the Ambazonian Governing Council, has the relevant knowledge on the issues at bar. And our focus now is to make sure the international community gets Cameroon to commit. When they do commit, the different strategies we have will be put in place to make sure that we can project Ambazonia as an equal party on a negotiating table. We can make the international system and our public understand that through this negotiation process, Cameroon has bowed to Ambazonian pressure, from denying that there was even a problem to forming all sorts of commissions, trying all domestic antics to be able to come to a negotiating table is a win for Ambazonia. At this stage, our interaction with the international communities is already a recognition of Ambazonia, of the different stakeholders. We have a carefully defined plan that involves border demarcation, assets, involves post-conflict justice issues in terms of reparation, and in terms of holding Cameroon as a state and individuals who perpetrated genocide accountable. So our plan is cogent. It will be a plan that any leader who takes over after the 9th will be able to direct and make sure that the negotiating team is going to work according to the principles that we have collectively as a movement laid down.
Comrade Ngola, do you agree?
It's very difficult to disagree or to oppose because I'm not coming from another movement. That is why I earlier made the point that it is very difficult to distinguish the leader of the War of Independence and the leader of the AGOVC. The AGOVC is a structured body with policy in place. The expertise is there, and other group of expertise are still available that we can make use of. It is the policy of the AGOVC that the leader of the movement would not represent during negotiation. So there's no way I can disagree with what Dr. Ayaba is saying because it is not of his making, but it is the organizational policy. So I totally agree with what he's saying.
All right. Well, thank you both for answering those questions so eloquently. Moving on to defense, which I think it's one of those points that most Ambazonians want to hear. So, as the president, how do you intend to make the ADF to become a more formidable force with unbeatable units across the 13 states of Ambazonia? Comrade Ngola, I'll start with you on this one.
Okay, thank you very much. I think what we've witnessed throughout this past 4 years in our defense strategy that was laid out by the ADF, the Ambazonia Defense Forces, with the amount of infiltrator and spoilers in our war of revolution, they have caused total chaos on the ground. So to me, I would need to roll back to our primary strategy, which is the block by block approach. I believe if we roll back, going back to that block by block approach, things will get better. Also, we need to increase our capacity. We lay down some strategy, the economic sabotage. For the past 4 years, we've crippled Cameroon economically in our territory, but what we feel, and I'm sorry to acknowledge that on national TV, what we feel to turn that economic sabotage into our benefit. For example, look at CDC. It is our property, it is our economic asset. Stopping the exploitation of CDC or PAMO or our mineral resources by Cameroon government. We're supposed to make use of that. So our defense strategy for this 2021 will be turning around some of our economic capabilities back at home for the benefit for our defense. By this, it will provide the necessary resources to up our game in terms of arms and bullets. I believe also we need to create like the stabilization force that it is in progress. That will help to reduce the kidnapping for ransom, to put law and order in certain areas where there's chaos, and also to continue to sensitize our population locally and in urban area, and to encourage many others to join the fight for their survival. So I think that is what we'll put out this 2021. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Ayaba, over to you.
You know, if you observe the war now, La République has been relegated. The soldiers don't step out of armor cars because that's the only place to find protection. Those who travel in things like hillocks, they know they are meat for the vultures because we're gonna punch them out. So the strategy that I will be focusing on is to bomb La République out of those armor cars. It is critical that we make their movement across the territory. And I've made this argument before after the Ngabo massacre. If we increase our potential in terms of improvised explosive devices, we will do a couple of things. One, prevent their entry into vulnerable suburbs where they commit massacres, and relocate them from those suburbs into urban areas where, you know, we are comfortable. So I will be focused on making sure that after every 20 meters, there is a bomb that blows off La République military truck and military patrols. That is the first thing. The second thing is we have successfully, thanks to our collective effort, put materials on the ground. They are not enough, but if you see where we are coming from, we have really done well. If the transition from Dane guns into assault rifles into heavy caliber armor piercing machine is a massive transition from a people who basically do not have a budget. And so increasing the amount of bullets, a battle in Bamenda, I argued before, takes 1,000 bullets. If we put thousands and thousands, and Comrade Hurace and myself and his colleagues at the War Council debated that yesterday, 100,000 bullets to our guys on the ground is critical. Third, the ADF must understand. The ADF must understand, and I continuously make this, it is for their interest, their utmost interest, to work with other sister forces on the ground. Because the strategy which he articulates of the block by block only works when there is a network of forces within those blocks. Some at the periphery act like first intelligence gathering outposts. They act like first interception outposts before you reach the core where the ADF is more powerful. So making sure that those forces that will agree, excluding the Bui warriors, there will be no ever cooperation with the Bui warriors until we find the bodies of our murdered patriots. But all the other forces, it's important that the Ambazonian Defense Forces work together with this network.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ayaba. Your time is up.
To increase their effectiveness and to increase, you know, their actions against the regime.
Right, thank you so much, Dr. Ayaba. Comrade Ngula, just a follow-up on, you know, with Dr. Ayaba talking about, you know, bombing of La République military and their camps. Now, if I remember well, after the Dublin Declaration, or, you know, when they had the Dublin Declaration, which I'm sure we all are privy of that, the AGOVC exec had put out a statement. One of the declaration was to take the war to La République, wherever they are. It can be in Yaoundé or in Douala, wherever they are. So take the war to La République. Do you think that that is a good strategy in executing, you know, this war of independence?
I'm not in total against of the Dublin Declaration, but I believe that particular statement shows forth of certain aspect when we look at the sovereignty of Cameroon. Remember that Cameroon is a colonial state under France, and they have their colonial pact. With any security threat within Cameroon, France has the right to intervene militarily. So I think taking the war into Cameroon, it becomes like a security threat to their country, and French troops will be obliged to step in. I don't think it is the strategy that we can put forward to take the war into Cameroon. We will defend them into our space. And that is why it is very difficult for the international community to term our movement or to classify us as a terrorist organization, because we are defending our own territorial integrity and the existence of our people. So taking the war to La Republique, with that I will disagree. We'll continue to defend ourselves in our territory, and we'll kick them out with the defense strategies that are in place. Thank you.
Dr. Ayaba, what do you have to say about this?
That's where we disagree. I understand the colonial pact, and I understand, the clause that talks about a threat to the security that might invite French intervention. But we argued in Dublin, and I think no country is going to attack us as terrorists, because the planning for the genocide, the assembly of logistics for the genocide, the mobilization of resources for the commission of genocide in Ambazonia all takes place in La Republique du Cameroon. As a people facing all of these threats, we have a right under international law to destroy the source of all of these powers that come into our land to commit crimes. We have a right to cross over into La Republique and target military outposts, as we have done, to make sure that we prevent them from coming into our land. It falls within the remit of law. I also think that in most liberation struggles, whether you look at the Eritrean struggle, there were targeted strikes within Ethiopia by the Eritreans. Even when the Ethiopians solicited Somalia, the Eritreans immediately cut off Somaliland with support. So we think we have a strategy and a policy to engineer instability within La Republique du Cameroon through surgical operations and through other methods, and it has been ongoing. We have not been as effective as we wanted, but we have shown our ability for cross-border incursions and activities that undermines Cameroon's own territorial control and assertion of power within its own space.
Okay, thank you. All right, so there has been a lot of infiltration within our fighting ranks on ground zero. We have seen, several of our, protectors of women and children being slaughtered. We just saw not too long ago, 27 or more of our comrades where we actually don't even know their whereabouts, the whereabouts of their corpse or their bodies. So as the president of the AGOVC, you are mandated to work hand in hand with the War Council to stamp out infiltrators and instill discipline within our fighting ranks. Now, kindly explain to us how you intend to achieve this and your roadmap of achieving this important aspect of our defense forces. Comrade Ayaba, you have 4 minutes.
Infiltration has been an old age tactics of occupying regimes. As I have argued before, there were more infiltrators against, those fighting for the independence of Algeria than there were nationalists. In all struggles, there are infiltrators. We have developed from the very first day of our defense a wide network that was able and is still able to identify and eliminate certain threats within our liberation struggle. The strategy of the block by block itself is an anti-infiltration, strategy. Except when you found other Ambazonians who use instrumentalization to pit bloc against bloc. Because when you defend your bloc, you have familiarity with that bloc. Any outsider who steps in there is identified and is easily communicated. And so we have, before even coming in here, I've been discussing with a network of let me not go deeply into it, but we are working on a counter-infiltration strategy. Our defense intelligence and Comrade Hurace and myself got this briefing the other day, received a full briefing on how we will have to deal with both defense infiltration and a political international level infiltration, and how we have to respond as leaders. One of the things we've been doing in this revolution is we talk a lot. We haven't followed standard procedure on how to identify, expose, and shame and eliminate threats to our war of independence, because everybody sits on a WhatsApp message and can put a counter message. We also have to make sure that families that harbor infiltrators have some level of responsibility for the effect of the infiltrators on our forces and our civilian population. We don't want to institute collective punishment, but families have a responsibility to report to our forces and political leadership the activities of those who enable and work for the interests of La Republique. There are other harsh measures we are contemplating. We aren't there yet, but this is being discussed as I speak. And we'll look at it with respect to its merit in law and its effectiveness in terms of getting us closer to our independence.
All right, thank you so much, Comrade Ngula.
Infiltration is something that we'll keep fighting it till the last day. And I believe coming on air today, and most of you, maybe it will be the first time seeing the face behind that name, Hurace. I've always preferred working in the background. That's my strategy. And I believe there are lots of other AGOVC members who are working, doing marvelous job in the background without them coming in the limelight. Infiltration is something that is very critical because, like for myself, I have brothers who have died in battle who were brave ADF soldiers, and it's something that we are looking at it in the Defense Council and trying to put all measures to tackle it. One thing that we really need to step up is intel gathering, which we had a briefing, as Dr. Ayaba said. It is very, very critical, both on the ground and here in the diaspora, because there are lots of people that they still take this as a joke or some kind of a video game, whatever, because they find themselves in the comfort of Europe and America. There's a method that will deal with every infiltrator that causes the loss of life to our people back at home and our brave men and women who are defending homeland. So I cannot really go into detail, but normally there are policies that will be guided by law and the legality, so that we take into consideration on how we'll deal with them. Thank you.
Thank you. And talking about this, now we remember the Bui 27 or more that were killed by other forces, also fighting for the liberation of Ambazonia. And we also, and to the best of my knowledge, the leadership of Dr. Ayaba Cho Lucas did not physically engage to bring the death of those boys to justice. Do you think that the leadership did the right thing, or would you have done differently?
To a certain extent, I must say yes, because remember when the AGOVC termed the Sako and Chris Anu as infiltrator, we must remember that the guys who are fighting under them are not classified as infiltrator. They are just being instrumentalized because of lack of education, and which is very essential with the ADF, because we keep providing that education to our forces on the ground. But with that kind of massacre that we witnessed in Bui, I really believe, and that is why we changed our plan, our defense strategy, to term all ADF units to become a military zone, no coming closer to within a 1 kilometer range without confirmation if you are coming in peace, will consider you as an enemy target. So with that, we've learned a lesson, and we try to look to minimize the chaos that was on the ground and to use that to really reach out to other forces to give them the necessity or the reason for them to work together. And I think with the BUI, we have realized that they have really bent on attacking the ADF, and future possibility, anything coming closer to the ADF will deal with them like public. And I don't see any reason whether we collaborate with other defense forces on the ground. We'll never, never, even there's a change of leadership in the AGOVC, I don't think we can collaborate with the BUI warriors.
Okay, I'm certain Dr. Ayaba agrees with you. All right, so last question on defense. There has been an outcry of soldiers being exposed to the social media, leading to the exposure of most of their hiding places by enablers and planted agents within our communities. Being the leader of the People's Army, and in accordance with the charter, which demands that measures be taken to protect and safeguard the life of every fighter within the ADF and its sister forces, what strategy will you bring on board to make sure that these fighters are protected, but at the same time, not denying them the privilege to showcase their victories and successes to the world as freedom fighters? Dr. Ayaba.
Let me just go back into what he said about BUI.
Okay.
What we have to know is to understand the motivation of those who, murdered our soldiers. You know, their motivation was to project themselves to those they were speaking to internationally as the dominant parties on the ground, as to have the sole responsibility to negotiate for Ambazonia. And when they tried to coerce the AGOVC into that manipulation, and we rejected it based on our understanding of the way that the international negotiation was structured, they were also informed by Cameroon and the international community that they cannot move forward without the AGOVC. They then decided it was important to eliminate the Ambazonian defense forces as to weaken the ability of the AGOVC, to stop, the approach to many of their international transactions. And this motivation has totally been eliminated. And I think based on our education and what we are doing on the ground, and I agree with him, the threat to our forces has been reduced, because if you attempt the lives of an ADF soldier, you will be taken out. They have a standing order never to attack a sister force, never. But they have the right to defend themselves when threatened because of the experiences of Guzang, the experiences of Bui, the experiences of Mato. In terms of social media and struggles, the problem with the Ambazonian struggle is not that people expose themselves. Look at every other struggle in contemporary times. And the psychological impact of showcasing your victory against the enemy is huge. You have different struggles where they pop, an armor car of the enemy. They show that so that it has a negative effect on other soldiers. It has a negative effect on the government. Look at what happened to America in Iraq, in Afghanistan. All of those things were exposed through social media. So it is not entirely, negative to project our forces or to project our victories. What is happening is that the internal enemies that seek to undermine the ability of those who are doing a great job, they use those things to help, La République to find out some of our forces. Our forces are not hiding in the jungle, so we should not make a mistake. The Bamenda Brigade is in Bamenda. You know, our mother base is not somewhere in the jungle. It's right there in the middle of Mogamo. Our forces in Fako are quite openly there. So the forces are there. La Republique knows where they are. Our generals are, they have a human face out there. So, and that will continuously be the case because we are fighting to project a nation. We cannot be fighting and hiding all the time, but we are taking measures to make sure that, you know, we do not deliberately expose either intelligence, some fighters who move for surgical purposes, and certain actions before they are carried out. And I think the War Council is taking measures. Our social media activists like my press secretary, the DDC, Capo Daniel, they are doing all their best. Our technical team is working also on every video, every photo before it is put out there.
All right. Thank you so much. Comrade Ngula, over to you.
Protection of soldiers on the ground is very, very important because we all have family or friends that they are defending homeland. One of the issues that we realize in the War Council is that most people sit in the diaspora, send $100 or $200 to a soldier to make a video, and then they expose that, claiming that they have guys on the ground who are fighting for them. With the ADF, we are working very hard because with us, each and every soldier on the ground is family to us. It's not just a number. That is why you see when a soldier fall on the battlefield, it's a big pain in the AGOVC ADF family. We cry a lot for that, and we reach out to the family for comforting and other assistance. So we are really trying to protect our guys on the ground. But as the president, Dr. Ayaba said, at times we need to showcase our defense capability to the international community because it sends out a positive message as well, and how organized we are on the ground. Our forces, as he rightly said, they are not hiding in the bushes. We have guys even in Meme, in Kumba, they are in the city. The military, they know where they are, but it's just that they can't penetrate. So they turn around to use people in the diaspora and other infiltrators on the ground to expose our soldiers. And also, I'll also give or criticize some of our social media activists. Just to seek relevance, they tend to expose some of our locations of our fighters on the ground, which is totally unacceptable. And I believe with this, with the ADF, the way it is structured, we are trying to limit that and to reduce the communication among coordinators and the fighters on the ground. So we'll continue to protect them, but in the same time, when there's need be, we need to showcase our strength and victory. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Comrade Ngula. I think both of you agree on this particular point. So we have come to our last question, and it's going to be on education. And this is where my heart actually lies. But our children have been out of school since 2016. And we all know that a child's right to education cannot be safeguarded in conflict zones without education itself being protected. Out of school, children are easy targets of abuse, exploitation, and recruitment by armed groups. So, as a leader, what will you do to see that education is also made a priority in this conflict? Comrade Ngula.
I believe as a member of the AGOVC and yourself, you are aware of the education board in the AGOVC. And what we need to do or to become a leader of the AGOVC, I would like to push hard for the education board to mostly concentrate in community areas where our forces control in terms of providing community education. I think we are already experiencing that in some of our controlled territories on the ground. And also one thing that is very critical is the curriculum of education, because we need to change that mindset for our children and future generation. The education that we obtained from Cameroon did not make us an asset, but normally we became a liability. And looking at myself, studying biochemistry, graduated with a BSc with distinction, but was unable to produce even a paracetamol. So when I moved to Johannesburg, I was like a laughing stock. I entered a laboratory, I was very amazed, something that I've only read in theory, but to really see them or work with it practically was really a challenge. And we intend to grow that and provide the kind of education that our children will grow to become asset, not even looking at the government that will be in place to provide employment for them to create, to be useful to the society as well. I strongly agree that the education board really need to work hand in gloves with the defense so that we can, in control areas, we can start to introduce the curriculum of education in the community schools. Right now, I'm also working in the Ndian area, in areas that where schools are not functioning, trying to recruit parents and children to go back to school. So I'm looking forward to work with the education board of the Ambazonia Governing Council to provide guidelines on how we can go about that as well. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Dr. Ayaba, over to you.
Yeah, education is critical for our children. And in the past 60 years, we have had what they call educational intoxication. And that's why, and Comrade Hurace is right. You graduate with distinction, but you are nothing. I measured when I got admitted in the University of Boya was mathematics and computer sciences. And, later on got into chemistry and chemical process technology. All of us emerged from there totally useless. Also because, education was classified in a way that other areas of education that are relevant for domestic market and our economic realities were stigmatized. And I think the curriculum that has been put in place is going to give priority to educational system that is contextualized. I mean, also to rebrand different levels of education and different professions to give people the dignity in terms of appellation. One of the first things that I'll be doing after February 9 is to restructure or totally dismantle the education board, which has woefully failed, and integrate the education department into the broader UNPO group so that it can work together with different opportunities within UNPO and the international community to give opportunities to children on the ground. There are kids on the ground going to school without exercise books, without pencils. And I'll also support the initiative of the Country Sunday that has been successful in making benches for our children in Bui. I have to make sure that we increase support for the community schools that are ongoing and use our television. We've been working in the background to make sure there are educational programs that can run between 6 o'clock in the evening and 7 o'clock, basically to provide kids with some level of understanding. We'll be trying to recruit educators out here who can do a lecture on TV, and we put them on our special education website to be able to give access to children down there. So there's a lot we are going to do, working with UNESCO, working with international partners, and developing different strategies, alternative method of education. It has been very successful in Momo, successful in Bui, it's ongoing in different areas in Fako, and I think if elected, I'll be working with Comrade Hurace to see what we do in Ndian also.
All right, thank you so much. Now, I just remember that I received a call early last week from one of the pastors from a pastor in one of the areas in Bui. I'm not going to give the details for security reasons. So he has been trying to put together, community schools. And every time he does that, there is disruption from the forces in that area. So, they'll come and destroy maybe the classrooms that they are using So at this point, he has moved these kids from, where they used to have their small community, teachings and all that, to his church. And every day that church houses about 232 kids, if I'm not mistaken with that number, or by that number, about 232 kids. And it has 4, volunteer teachers. Unfortunately, every time that those kids are, coming to school or to, to school or to church to study, they usually receive threats from some of the forces around that area, both the children and the volunteer teachers. What will you tell somebody like a pastor, or that pastor that is trying to bring kids together so that they can receive some form of education in these trying times, but facing challenges from the same people that are, meant to protect the Ambazonian people, the Ambazonian children, the women and all that? What will you tell a pastor like that is struggling to do the best to educate, the children in his community, but faces, such a challenge? Comrade Gula.
First of all, I really like to applaud the initiative of the pastor, because in this trying time, it's really difficult, and having that courage to step up to provide education for our kids is very, very important, and we must all appreciate that. One thing that will go back is the education to the defense structure that is surrounded or that is found in that particular location. Are the guys having the right education, or to understand that the form of education the pastor is providing to our children is what is the curriculum that the Ambazonia Governing Council or the the education curriculum that the Ambazonia Governing Council has provided? If yes, then we need to initiate a conversation with those guys around there. First of all, we need to identify who are those forces and try to reach out to them to talk, to give them reason why school is supposed to go on, provided the curriculum of education is Ambazonia based. It's very important, like we said, in areas where the ADF controls, it is very successful, and we just need to continue to spread the message across the territory. I believe with that, people will reason and understand the necessity of education for our children. Thank you.
Absolutely. Dr. Ayaba.
I think we need to identify the area where this pastor is operating. The forces that are hostile to the initiative that he's undertaking, and the possibility of moving those kids to safer areas and making some investment in terms of benches, educational materials to support that initiative. That's the first thing. The second thing is one of the functions of the stabilization force is to eliminate threat to Ambazonian institutions and Ambazonian individuals. And we're taking that carefully, but we need to have a conversation, as Comrade Hurace has said, with the pastor, empower the pastor. We tried that with another a doctor in Bui, and he was brutally murdered. So we will be cautious, because some of these internal enemies, when they realize that we are taking initiative to support initiatives that strengthen our people, they eliminate those persons, as we saw in Bui with the elimination of the doctor. But the first thing I will do after this is to have conversation to find out where they are located, and if possible, we can move the children into areas where the ADF controls and make more investment to make sure that they can continuously go to school.
All right, thank you so much. And I can, from my discussion, state that these forces are actually from, they are the Bui warriors, from what he told me. So those are the forces that are, giving him and his children trouble. All right, so I know we are running out of time. We have actually come to the end of my questioning, and I wanted to take one question from the audience. And I think I saw a question that caught my attention about humanitarian issues. This person each of you to tell us your idea how you will carry out humanitarian issues, I guess, when it comes to, especially with our refugees in Nigeria, or wounded soldiers, and so on and so forth. So I will start with you, Dr. Ayaba. What do you have in plan when it comes to humanitarian issues?
In terms of our refugees, I think the AGOVC has, in Nigeria in particular, the AGOVC, I think a couple of years ago, sent a team into Nigeria to support the refugees. There were some hostilities against our envoy, and it was simply political. But I think the IGK has and is doing a lot in terms of the refugees. And my belief is that we should support that effort. We should not duplicate it. I think there are some very powerful women within the IGK that have been really focused on the refugees. It will help us if we mobilize resources and work in partnership with them to support the refugees on the ground. I know that the Ambazonian Governing Council, through its educational effort, has been doing a lot. Through the War Council humanitarian sector, has been taking care of every wounded soldier. We've gotten bills in the past few months of about 4 million AMBA for the treatment of our wounded soldiers, and also taking care of spouses and children of dead soldiers. I also think I want to be focused on us generating publicity for domestic humanitarian organizations that are working with IDPs. We cannot pretend to want to do everything or to know how to do everything. Our focus is on defending the homeland, because we know if we speed up the day Cameroon's collapses, we will resolve those humanitarian issues. We are also working with the international community to appeal to different international stakeholders. There are many NGOs that are being sponsored from the United States of America that will provide facilitation through our Human Rights and Humanitarian Department and through our War Council to reach out to vulnerable IDPs displaced. I also want to thank our communities, Ambazonians living as refugees in Cameroon, our expatriate communities in Cameroon who have been providing support. We have NGOs out here that have been providing training to girls, you know, even in plaiting hair, on doing designs, on sewing. We need to create more awareness, especially our women, to create more awareness in terms of the plight of our people, and open opportunities for local NGOs that are working with IDPs, and support the ladies of the IGK. We should work together with them to provide more support to our refugees and strengthen initiatives rather than duplicate them. And I think this is one of the promise of Comrade Hurace. Sometimes holistic unity might not work, but segmental unity might really be very beneficial for our people.
Right, thank you so much, Dr. Ayaba. Comrade Hurace.
Dr. Ayaba, I've just crush everything on this one, but it's very important because the humanitarian crisis that we are facing really call for concern. And as he rightly said, there are credible humanitarian agencies out there, both on ground zero and here in the diaspora, that they are working very hard to provide the necessary need to our refugees and IDPs. I think like what we should focus, like AGOVC, we should delegate the humanitarian department to work in partnership with those humanitarian agencies. And since our main focus is on defense, we cannot do everything at the same time. We'll end up doing none. So I will still strongly advise that the humanitarian department of the AGOVC should work in collaboration with other humanitarian agencies out there to provide that support to our children and women back at home. Thanks.
All right, thank you all so much. Well, both of you have been very good spots. I was expecting some punches, and I would have loved that to actually happen though. But apparently you all decided somehow to be nice to each other, but which is good. So thank you all for both candidates for accepting to be here today. But we cannot, close this without having you all give us a closing statement. And I think one of our viewers would love for you all to speak in Pidgin. Lucia Achu would love for you all to speak in Pidgin if that is possible. So, Comrade Ngula, let me hand this over to you with your closing statement.
I really appreciate that. For her to mention that we speak in Pidgin, and this is where I will attack Dr. Ayaba, because the numerous cry that he should speak in Pidgin, but I don't know if he doesn't, he's not able to. I want to thank all Mamami and Papa them for ground zero. Make una know say we dey behind una. This thing all with the face and not be only una dey down with the sufferer. We go continue to support everybody for the little we get, and make una continue to provide that same support too for our boys the way that they help una protect una. One thing we are going to talk, which we would see today for this TV, now which we call a democracy. If we fly that Ambazonia flag each time you see that blue color, it represents that democracy we would talk. We were forefathers, our ancestors, they don't lay them down for 1954 up to 1960. So now which we would try for practice, and today, may somebody no look and say, now internal fight though they happen inside Ambazonia Governing Council. No matter the outcome, which will go happen on the 9th of February, I go still work with the new leadership, and I go still remain the AGOVC member where a day, and I go even become more stronger. So make we concentrate, help our brother them, and I go call everybody to a day for diaspora and say, I beg una go for TTOF. Even if na $1 we not commit for them, make we provide that ammunition for our boys the way that they fight. Thank you plenty.
All right, thank you so much, Comrade Ngula. Dr. Ayaba, over to you in Pidgin.
Yeah. Thanks a lot. I'll jump and pass. I'll jump and pass. First, I want to thank the moderators. I want to thank the chairman of the, I had forgotten that there was supposed to be an election, and I was reminded quietly that the charter talks about an election. I said, well, it's good to put my record to test. And when I heard there was a challenger, and I said, damn, how can I call the ADF to get this guy arrested immediately? But unfortunately, the guy was the ADF. So it was very difficult. I know some people look at what is going on here and say, well, maybe this is real. I really wanted to rest today after many days of meetings, but I had to be compelled by the organization to come and talk about my policies. The greatest thing I've learned here today is to be able to listen to another emerging leader of the AGOVC, put his vision, and I think that strengthens mine. If I'm elected, I think we will work together to make sure that we strengthen the Ambazonian Governing Council, and in that process, we strengthen our liberation struggle. Now, one of the things I would really appeal, and I would follow up with what you have said. Today alone, we have spent more than $5,000 to buy bullets. Ambazonians, please go to TTOF and buy bullets. On 11th of February, yesterday, Comrade Ngula, I think I speak for both of us, we all decided they are going to be standard 2 lockdowns in a year. That's 11th of February on the 20th of May. Any other one will be decided and communicated to the Ambazonian people. So on Thursday, the 11th of February, Ambazonia will be locked down against the celebration of an illegal day. But we need between now and then to provide enough bullets and enough bombs to our people, to our forces, to bomb the hell out of these arrogant bystanders in our own land. Ambazonians, don't be worried about all the people streaming into La Republique and talking about diplomacy. When the time comes, they will come to you. They will, pastors, priests, cardinals will not negotiate for Ambazonia. The fighters, those who speak for it, fight for it, bat for it, will negotiate to exit Cameroon from our land. Our only hope is turning sticks into guns, turning everything into what we need to defend ourselves. That is the only language the international system will understand. We will work together to unite our forces. I will take some strong initiatives in my first 10 days to see how I can bring harmony at the level of the diaspora, so that we can follow suit with what is happening on ground zero and be stronger together. And as I have always promised, be able to defeat La Republique as a people. Thanks a lot.
All right, thank you so much. At least we do not know the winner of the election, but we do know the winner of the best pigeon candidate. Congratulations, Comrade Hurace.
Congratulations, Dr. Ayaba. Your pigeon is not easy.
Well, viewers and everybody that is here with me, thank you all for joining us today. The candidates, you all did a phenomenal job. And thank you to the election group that put this together. Thank you to my timekeeper, which I am going to hand over right now to her to give us a closing statement. Over to you, Madam HHS Ambazonia.
Thank you very much, Madam Moderator. First of all, gentlemen, I want to heartily thank the both of you for a robust 2-hour debate, and it's been awesome. It's been wonderful. You've all been so civil and so respectful and mature in your presentation, and I want to believe that Ambazonians are indeed proud of you. This is a process that has set the pace for Ambazonia. We are building a democratic nation, and this debate is just the first step. Unfortunately, it is just one-time debate. We are not going to be having a second debate for this, but we hope Ambazonians have listened to you. You've all spoken. You've presented your strategies, and I want to believe that Ambazonians have all heard you. It's now left on Ambazonians to go back home, rethink, and vote. Of course, I'm calling on all AGOVCs come February 9th to make sure they cast their vote. This is what we are looking forward to have in the new nation that we are building, a democratic process, a process where we change our leaders, a process where we present to them a question, challenging question that gives them the opportunity to speak to us, speak their minds to us, and give us direction and clarity on the things that they hope to present to our people and the way they want to build our nation. So I want to take this opportunity once again to thank you, both you gentlemen, Dr. Ayaba and Hurace Ngula, for your incredible performance. I want to thank the entire team. I want to thank the leadership of the Ambazonian Governing Council. I want to particularly thank the chairman of the National Council, the chairman of the Council of Mission, and of course, every member of the cabinet of the Ambazonian Governing Council, the War Council, and every other person that made it possible for us to have this successful debate. So thank you all, Ambalanders. Thank you all, AGOVCs, and please go back. You all listen to them, go and vote. This is now the time for you to make the final decision. They've played their part, it's now left on you. Thank you all.
Right, thank you.
Yes, I'm mute now. I'm on mute. So thank you so much. I think that said, we have come to the end of the debate. Now it's time for all AGOVCs to go within their various missions, as Comrade Cecilia Amabo just said, and take a decision and go on. The exercise will be ending on the 9th. And that is when we are going to know the new leadership for Ambazonian Governing Council. I want to appreciate everybody and for your commitment. And God is going to reward each and every one of you for always being there for Ambazonia, for always being there for democracy, for being there for the voice of the people, and providing them the voice to speak. That said, I want to thank especially the two candidates for the bravery and the courage to take this mission forward and to make sure we have hope for a new nation coming in the future. Thank you so much, gentlemen, and the viewers on ACN and various social media platforms. We are so grateful, and thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to save the people. That said, thank you so much and have a good night, everybody, or good day, wherever you are.
Thank you.
So.
Comrade, are we off? Are you live?